Hello, everyone. My name is Isabel Garcia. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the founder of Estoy Aquí. I want to welcome you all to the new episode of Why I'm Still Here, Porque Sigo Aquí. Today's episode is about gaming as a form of care. And before we introduce our very special guest, I want to remind you all why I am doing this series. It is named Why I'm Still Here and Por qué Sigo Aquí because of the community care concept, which means that while we take care of ourselves or our mental health, physical health, spiritual health, etc., we are also taking care of others' mental health, of others' physical health, spiritual health, etc. And so that is the inspiration behind all of those different episodes. We are talking about different strategies to apply that community care to take care of ourselves and each other. Now, having said that, for today's topic, we have Charlie Laboy, and I am so excited for this topic in a specific because in many circles, it's controversial to talk about gaming and its benefits for mental health and community care. Having said that, welcome, Charlie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so can you tell us more about who you are and your work in the community?
Absolutely. So my name is Charlie Laboy. I've been a school age educator since I was 16 years old. So I've been in the field for about 13 years now. 14 years now. Since I was 16, I'm 30 now. So I've worked with camps and school age programs for a long time. And the biggest way I've always connected with my kids is just sharing my own interests. And my biggest interest growing up was gaming. I loved role playing games. I liked playing sports games. Really, any video games that my friends were playing, I love to play. I love to play with them, and I love to play with the kids. Any chance we got to kind of like cool off and have some recreational time, it was a great way for all of us to bond and
Mm.
to maybe share our interests, especially because if I brought out a game like Pokemon, some people might look at that as a little childish, a little more young-minded, young-centric. But then I would have some of my teenage counselors in training. They would express to the younger kids how much they liked it growing up, and I got to share all of my knowledge, and everyone was just sharing all of all of what they knew about the game, and that was a great way for all of us to connect, even if it was just for 45 minutes.
Hmm. And I know that you have an organization, right? Besides your role, your job position, I think you also have your own organization, and that you implement all these beliefs and values as well, right?
Correct. So I operate under the name Boy Charlie Plays as my gaming channel. That's where I do a lot of my Pokemon content. But I'm also in the process of licensing my own program after 13 years, called the One Strong Community Program. So the One Strong Community Program is going to be an out of school time after school program from like 3 p.m. to about 5:30 p.m. And we're going to provide basic care for families that need it for after school in Chicopee. And during that time, that's when I'm going to implement some of my cultural, my art, and my gaming programming. With one of the biggest things that I've worked on the last few years is called the One Strong Pokemon League, which I was running out of La Diaspora before its closure in August.
Right, right. So you already answered my next question.
Oh,
Because I was gonna ask, what type of gaming do you do, and where does this passion come from? And you mentioned different forms of gaming, like sports, for instance, or role play.
yeah,
You also mentioned this dialogue that happens when you're playing. But would you like to expand on that
absolutely.
question of, again, types of gaming that you love, and where does this passion come from?
Yeah, so I kind of explained how I was able to connect with people who liked Pokemon in the past. Pokemon is probably the biggest game that's inspired me because Pokemon's all about collecting, it's all about trading, it's all about battling, connecting with others in order to either complete the game or to learn more skills or to learn more strategies. And the only way you're going to do that is if you pick up your device, even when it was a Game Boy and there wasn't any online capacity, you had to go walk to another person and ask them, "Hey, can you trade me the Pokemon you have in your game? You're the only one that has it in that game. I have these other ones." And that aspect to it just allows for a lot of community building. So 2 years ago, I started the One Strong Pokemon League, and starting off with one or two kids, everyone was bringing their own Pokemon cards. They were bringing their own Nintendo Switches, and they were learning how to play the game. They're like, "Oh man, your monster's really cool. Your dragon's really cool." And it just starts conversations. It gets kids used to each other, and the amount of laughs you would get out of those 2 hours just making jokes, coming up with silly nicknames, and it's inspiring. It was very inspiring for me because I didn't have spaces like that growing up. Gaming was kind of frowned upon. I was actually, when I was younger, I was pushed away from gaming from like 13 to about 17. My parents wouldn't even let me play video games during the week until after school was over. So once I got older, I kind of wanted, not so much, I wanted to be able to provide that to others during the week,
Mhm.
in the ways that I wasn't able to kind of get on my own time. And just having that space to share our own interests was amazing. And even when it came to sports games, I wasn't very athletic myself. But once I started playing Madden, I started getting into football. I started learning more about football, learning more about the sport, what the rules are, what plays there are, and playing NBA 2K. You pick up these games and you learn a lot about different cultures and different aspects of life that you might not have thought about before. So I always looked at gaming as more of a learning tool, as more of an opportunity for that connection and for that resource gathering. There's a lot of information that designers are putting into these games for us to look for. They put little Easter eggs and sharing the secrets, how to get rare things, how to
Mhm.
find the background of why they designed a certain creature the way that they did. Is a European design? Is it Hawaiian design? Is it a Italian design? A lot of those things are considered when making these games and these different platforms. So I wanted to find a way to create a guild, almost kind of a gaming community, not just with the Pokemon side of it, but with One Strong, it's going to kind of expand further and it's going to allow us to do other things. So One Strong is going to be a little broad. It's going to have the Pokemon aspect to it, but then
Mhm.
I want to get into art. I want to get into culture, because all of in business, because all of that is involved in the gaming sphere. I'm actually just starting a job at Chicopee Comprehensive right now as a college and career center assistant. And one of the scholarships that we just looked up right now is a gaming scholarship. They're offering $10,000 to $15,000 to students who are part of these esports teams. So gaming is also just like a large opportunity for these students to advance their life. So I just want to be able to build that bridge.
Wow, I love this. I love this so much because now I'm thinking about a bunch of things that I honestly never even thought about as benefits for from gaming. I mean, you mentioned from, sharing in dialogue or sharing, let's say, different monsters or different aspects of the video game. You mentioned the laughter, but you also mentioned culture, that you are actually learning about different cultures. You are learning different life skills. You are learning how to connect with others. There is a resource gathering. Resources are being shared. And then you also spoke about art is part of gaming. Gaming is art, I would say. Gaming, the design, the creativity that goes into it, the imagination that goes into it. I believe that is all art. And so to me, this is wow. I love this. This is incredible.
Thank you.
Um, I also want to add to this the conversation about the so-called disadvantages, because nothing is perfect. None of these strategies that we have spoken about in the series are perfect. They are always, there might be barriers, there might be challenges to practicing the form of care. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned your parents were like, you are not gonna play video games.
Right.
And so why is that? Where is that coming from? The prejudice, discrimination against.
Yeah. I think it comes, it can come down to it almost seeming like an addiction. Some children might, they might plug in and then not be able to plug out and be able to connect with others. And I think their biggest fear was that I was going to be so focused on the screen all the time that I wasn't going to be able to learn how to talk to others. But I've learned how to be pretty outgoing over the years because I had a lot of peers who shared the same interest in my games. So I think the biggest disadvantage that people kind of see is that it's going to become more of a solitary, isolating aspect of someone's life, and it's going to force them to kind of hide away and be in a depressive state more so. When if it's used in more of an engaging way, like when I see streamers, and even streamers have burnout sometimes when it becomes more of a business aspect of it. But that's in a lot of different fields. But when they're part of a team, I notice when they're part of a team, there's people there with them that are able to contribute, even if it's just on the headsets and on at home on their own end. Because now you have the online communities all over the place. You have resources like Discord, Skype, Microsoft Teams. You can connect with people a lot easier now, even if it's just vocally. So you're not alone, and it's not a solitary, isolating thing. And another part of it is that people think you're just going to kind of lose your time with it, and now it's more of a worthwhile venture. You can get paid for putting these videos on YouTube. You can get paid for sharing images on your blogs or creating your own website. And a lot of the times, the kids that end up studying this stuff a little bit earlier, their technical skills are phenomenal later on. I knew a kid who started off liking Pokemon with me, got into Minecraft, learned how to engineer and design computers from that level of engineering. And now coming out of high school, he's getting into IT, he's getting into computer security. It's you learn there's a fear that you're not going to develop, but there's so much room to develop yourself and to become more acquainted to the world in a different way that people are just not used to. Like, people don't know there's huge stadiums dedicated to gaming. There are football stadiums dedicated to gaming. You can win thousands of dollars for yourself or for your team and split it up, and you make friends all over the world. You're not just making friends with someone down the block. You're making friends with in China and Taiwan and the Philippines, in Norwegian. You in the Norwegian countries. You're learning different languages even at times. The connection that's there is it's just not seen. It's only seen at for the bad sides of it. There's also the fear of swatting. There's a whole culture of negativity that is present. It is present in the community, but more often than not, you have a whole community fighting against that and arguing that that doesn't represent our community. And there's more of that needs to be seen.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. You mentioned a lot of the complexity of this, because it depends on also the community that you are building around the practice of gaming.
Yeah.
Because I have heard a lot about concerns about bullying, let's say, but who are you surrounding yourself with while practicing gaming? Who
Right.
are the people behind the screen? And so it seems like that is something that we have to consider if we use gaming as a form of care in specific. If we go beyond the entertaining, entertaining piece, uh, and take it as an actual strategy for mental health, then we have to consider, okay, but who are the people I am interacting with? What exactly am I learning? Like, what are the lessons here? I also have heard a lot about fear of failure, that many people get into gaming and they have this, suddenly they develop a fear of failure that goes beyond the gaming world, because I don't, who wants to lose, we want to win. So I would love to know, what is your opinion about that? Is there a way to counterattack this idea that you must win to feel worthy in the world
Yes.
of gaming?
Absolutely. I think, and I kind of take from my I have a huge summer camp experience, and one of the biggest thing we talk about first week of camp, I always made a point that you have to learn how to lose. Being a part of these communities, being a part of these games, you know, you're design the game is designed to try and beat you and try to test you. But you're right. There's a hyper fixation on trying to be perfect, trying to be successful. And there's even probably the more popular gamers pushing that kind of a culture, but there's a lot of pushback on those people because it's not realistic. You're not being really realistic to who you are. You're not the video game character yourself. So it's finding that realism in who you are and disconnecting yourself from the game, in a way that's productive to you. And I don't oh, I'm losing my words right here. Um, it's tough because the games that I play, I'm very competitive, but at the same time, this it all comes down to grace and learning how to lose to your opponent at the same time. And I think you see it a lot more with kind of the first person shooters, those highly competitive, fast paced games. They're really like, oh man, well, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of chirping, there's a lot of chirping going on. And you have that in kind of those bigger sports too. You have it in basketball, you have it in football. So it's learning how to be in a sport of its own. It's learning how to be around others in your village that are competing with you and trying to get the best out of you, and you're trying to get the best out of them. And as long as everyone has that understanding, I think it all goes well. But I can see how that's like a big disadvantage for some if they're dealing with the failure in a negative in a poor way. But we all have to learn how to roll with the punches, how to lose is kind of a big lesson. That's for lesson number one for me. Anytime it
Mhm.
comes to gaming, anytime it comes to battling each other, or literally just playing a game on the blacktop, it's like, all right, y'all, like, it's all business here. We're gonna leave it on the field, we're gonna leave it on the court, and then we're gonna move on. We're gonna be friends.
Hmm. So it seems like, even though it might be a consequence of gaming to develop that fear of failure or wanting to be perfect, what about the opposite? What about when we learn, oh, yeah, we're going to fail sometimes,
Yeah.
and developing the skills to deal with that while gaming, right? So it can be the opposite and it can become a benefit at the end of the day. And
Yes.
so I am starting to see the complexity now of
Yeah.
all of these different so-called advantages or disadvantages and how they connect with each other. You also mentioned the word shooting. There are a lot of shooting games. There's a lot of cursing words when sometimes people get really heated. And many people argue, oh my God, these violent video games, they are teaching kids to fight, to say bad words, and this and that. Now, we already mentioned, again, the complexity of it. Who are you surrounded with? Who are the people encouraging you to do X, Y, and Z? But I still want to touch on it because I know a lot of parents worry about, okay, but what is this violent, quote unquote, game teaching my child? What skills can they gain from, quote unquote, violent video games?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to violent video games, it gets very complex, especially depending on how old the person is, how appropriate that game might be for them age wise. That's why like I stay with Pokemon. It's very family safe, and I'm able to translate that. But you have whole communities that are getting built around. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is kind of one of the biggest games that it's survived almost 12 years at this point. And there's a lot of level creating. It's a lot of creation. There's a lot of building inside of the game, as well as there's a lot of role play that kind of goes on in that game. So there's other aspects to it that parents do kind of need to see, and it's about maybe watching the game and sticking with them and having the conversations of oh, that's what you do in this game, or even make give engage them in a way that's going to start the conversation and have them explain to you what's going on the screen, because yes, it's a violent game and it's already in their hands, so clearly you have purchased it for them. uh, but you also can't stop what they're watching on YouTube, because that's another big portion of it, is that kids are watching gaming on YouTube. Even if they don't own the game, they are watching it, and they're watching others um do these acts and maybe say the things that they don't necessarily want their child to say. And that's a conversation between the parent and the child. They have to connect and say, hey, do you understand that that person is saying that, but that's not necessarily something you have to say or that you have to believe, and keep it at its entertainment value. If it makes you laugh, it makes you happy, that's one thing. But I also don't, it's having that conversation on maturity and understanding the difference between entertainment and real life.
Mm,
And once parents open that door, that's going to allow that rapport to be developed even more, because you're meeting them at their interests. You're meeting them at what makes them feel special, because clearly they like what the game is offering and what kind of story it's telling. And we have had violent stories told to us in very different ways growing up, whether it comes to the Salem witch trials, it comes down to wars. We learn about different aspects of life and history that is violent, but it's told to us in a way that we can digest. So as long as you talk to them, find a way to help them digest the information you're trying to say, you'll keep that connection, and your child will be fine. I've been exposed to all types of language, all types of video games of all different kinds, and it's never changed my manner and my mannerisms and my politeness. However, I'm one figure in 7 billion, 6 8 billion people in the world, so I can't say that my model, my example, my experiment is going to match with others. But what I can say is conversations and developing that rapport with your child and having them understand how you feel, and then you understanding how they feel, is going to make a big difference in fighting what you see in the violent and the negative game.
hmm. I love how you reframe it to, what about a conversation? What about taking the opportunity? So you're seeing it as an opportunity to build trust and rapport,
Yep.
instead of seeing it as, oh hell no, we're not gonna. You are, it's like switching it to actually something that could benefit, like the relationship, the parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
Especially that, the question of, hey, I wonder what attracts you about this story, because as you said, there are storylines, and what is it about the storyline that attracts you, leading with that curiosity, and then you can learn a lot from your child. You can learn a lot from people by asking that question, by leading with curiosity. I also love the educational aspect, because let's say that there is a game about World War II. I don't know. And
Hmm.
then let's talk about that. Like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
do you know about this war? Do you know? And I love like the different aspects that we can touch upon just by having a quote unquote, let's say, controversial conversation, or conversations that we try to not even have sometimes
Yeah.
because we don't want to deal with that, basically. um so oh my god, I love this conversation, and I definitely want to continue learning about this, about the complexity of gaming as a form of care. Right now, though, we have to end.
Oh, no. Okay.
So I know I love this. It's so interesting to me. Um, and so, but before we go, I want to give you the opportunity to share with us how can we support your work. Are there any events you have coming up? Is there any social media or website that you want us to access?
Yes, so there's two websites y'all can check out. There's www.onestrong.page. This serves as the home to the One Strong community program. Future enrollment opportunities are going to be shown on here. I'm also in the process of trying to start a nonprofit for the whole thing. So it's going to be called the One Strong Foundation. The foundation is going to be able to accept grants and kind of distribute it to the community, with the idea of developing cultural and creative and artistic projects in gateway cities, so Chicopee, Holyoke, and Springfield. And then the One Strong page itself is a blog, so it'll have a newsletter for parents and also a blog for the foundation in order for people to connect on both of those projects. And then if you want to check out just my general content, my video game content, you can go to boycharlieplays.com, and that has all of my social links on there: YouTube, Facebook. It's mainly content on the website actually right now. That's mainly where I'm posting. So boycharlieplays.com or www.onestrong.page.
Perfect. I also want to let the audience know how they can support Estoy Aquí. First, you can go to the website estoy-aquí.org. You can see all the services that I offer to the community, but also you can go to the donation page. And all those donations go to funding La Cultura Sana, the Culture Cures Responder Program, which is basically where I reach out to, I call them the cultural and traditional mental health stakeholders, the barbers, the librarians, the hairstylists, the tattoo, yeah, the tattoo artists, the people who are really doing mental health work in the community outside the system. You can also actually support that program by purchasing my merchandise. And if you can see, Charlie is wearing a beanie that has the Estoy Aquí logo. You can actually purchase that beanie on the Bonfire website. So Estoy Aquí has a Bonfire website. If you go there, there is a lot of shirts, hoodies, mugs, beanies, bags, a bunch of things. Again, donations, Bonfire store, training services on my website. All of that will be highly appreciated. And so let's end it here. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Why I'm Still Here Porque Sigo Aquí series. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye now.